The right of nature is the liberty each man hath to use his own power, as he will himself, for the preservation of his own nature, that is to say, of his own life.
Good day everyone, I am Ishmael Ong. In today's video, we will discuss about the park located at Quezon City, the changes that it has undergone, and the role it plays in the ecosystem. Our reporters, Ann Birgesta, Kyle Pimentel, and Robert Inciso are here to tell you about the wonders of La Mesa, breath from the wild.
Here I am standing in La Mesa Eco Park, where people go and come to visit the lush forest greens amidst a concrete jungle, or to hear the calming sounds of birds chirping and winds calmly blowing, or just to have a great time with friends and family. It is a symbol of a rare success story of collaboration between public and private entities, as they maintain not only the forests, the wildlife, and what the features of this beautiful public park, but also what lies outside its natural borders.
The Mesa Eco Park is located just outside of the natural boundaries of the larger, more important La Mesa Watershed Reservation. Designated as a protected area in Novaliches, Quezon City, it is also known as Novaliches Watershed, with its geography containing a reservoir upon which the La Mesa Dam was built, and much larger forests that kept the region breathing. Its highest elevation is 250 meters or 820 feet above sea level, and the park is 40 meters or 130 feet below than the reservoir. The park is a popular destination for families, friends, and schools for its field trips due to the increasing amount of tourists and visitors for the park. At this rate, around 155,666 in 2005 and 281,846 people in 2006.
The La Mesa Dam was constructed in 1929 during the American occupation in the Philippines to replace the Wawa Dam, which provides clean, natural, potable drinking water to the nearby areas. Soon after the destruction that the Second World War has brought upon the country, the region that would be known today as the National Capital Region saw explosive growth in its population as people from all over the country migrated to settle in the area.
Unlike the Eco Park, where we can freely roam the area in order to admire the beauty that nature has given upon us, the La Mesa Watershed is not accessible to the public, and for good reason. For 2 decades starting in the 1960s, the informal settlers near the area had begun the slash and burn activities of the forests, turning wood into timber production and burnt forest to farmland for the families. This activity resulted in deforestation, decrease in biodiversity, soil erosion, among many other effects that would degrade the area.
there were efforts to mitigate and reverse this. In 1974, Cecilio Halili Benson, founding chairman of the National Greening Movement Foundation, initiated the reforestation, and the Manila Seedling Bank Foundation Incorporated undertook reforestation of the degraded forests, taking reforestation projects from 1978 to 1983. But after the project had been finished, the MSBFI stopped the reforestation and illegal loggers began to exploit the La Mesa watershed once again. By the year 1999, the forest cover had a net loss of 259 hectares.
In order to counter this continued degradation of the La Mesa watershed by illegal loggers, in 1999, Bantay Kalikasan, or Nature Watch of the ABS-CBN Foundation Incorporated, signed an agreement with the Metropolitan Waterworks and Sewage System in order to reforest and administer the area. A total of 1,500 hectares were needed for the reforestation, given the name Save La Mesa Watershed Project. Trees native to the area, such as the Kaatawan Bangkal, Kupang, and Big Leaf Mahogany, were planted and maintained to this day by the Bantay Kalikasan.
To sustain the Save La Mesa Watershed Project for years to come, the Bantay Kalikasan, in partnership with the MWSS and the QC government, rehabilitated and renovated a 33-hectare public park after years of neglect, just outside the natural boundaries of the watershed. With a fund of 247 million pesos raised for the project, it was opened in September 2004 and renamed it to La Mesa Eco Park. All its generated income will be utilized for the continuous preservation and protection of the La Mesa watershed.
The efforts by the public-private partnership to restore the degraded watersheds can be viewed as the first step in re-establishing the environmental services. The La Mesa watershed has been classified as a tropical moist broadleaf forest, which is located near the equatorial belt. These types of forests are characterized by low variability in yearly temperature and high levels of rainfall. Located near the watershed, the forests and its soil also help in the filtration of contaminants and trap sediments that would otherwise enter lakes or rivers. This makes forests and watersheds useful for providing clean water to the residents. Aquatic flora also exists in the area, as well as a wetland. 3 major aquatic ecosystems were found, and in those ecosystems, an abundance of flora components is of interest. They facilitate recycling of nutrients and a biological indicator of a healthy ecosystem. Forests are also useful for a mitigation of climate change. They can absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through photosynthesis in order to produce carbohydrates needed for their growth. And as a byproduct, oxygen is also produced in the process, which is needed for all other life forms, including human beings. Because of its carbon cycle and the watershed being the last major forest in the National Capital Region, the La Mesa Watershed Reservation could act as a carbon sink and is often referred to as the lungs and the last ecological frontier in the area.
With the construction of the Angat Dam in 1967 and the Ipo Dam in 1984, the La Mesa Dam was integrated into what became known as the Angat-Ipo La Mesa water system, which supplies 12 million Metro Manila citizens with potable water. This is because watersheds also function as basins for catching and collecting rainfall. Along with the function of the La Mesa Dam, it releases water for various amounts and durations in order to avoid overflow and flooding from the reservoir into the neighboring areas.
Because of the forest's proximity to the watershed, the forest also serves as a home for many diverse species of birds, such as the Philippine pied fantail, the grayback tailorbird, white-eared brown dove, lowland white-eye, among many other species. So, in order to conserve the biodiversity of not just birds, but also other animals and trees, successful forest rehabilitation requires proper choices of species. In the case of the trees, fast-growing nitrogen-fixing and shade-intolerant species possess the essential features needed for the restoration. Any species not native to the La Mesa Watershed Reservation might upset the ecosystem in the area, as those invasive species might have advantages that native plants and animals lack. Nitrogen fixation is part of the nitrogen cycle, which is a biogeochemical cycle in which nitrogen is converted from nitrogen gas to a form more useful to the biological process. After the nitrogen fixation stage, the nitrification occurs, which converts ammonia to nitrite and then to nitrate. This process occurs mostly aerobically and carried out by prokaryotes. Most trees that were native to the area, such as the Eririna variegata L and Pterocarpus indicus wild, were tested and proven to be useful in the operation. E. variegata has the best growth performance and can fix nitrogen, which is followed by P. indicus, more locally known as Nara. So majestic.
Over time, more projects concerning the reforestation of forests were enacted. For instance, the Rotary Club of Makati oversaw the area of 4.5 hectares for reforestation between the years 2000 and 2001. In 2016, the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, or DNR, led tree planting activities at the watershed. And in 2019, the Norwegian government helped with the conservation of biodiversity of trees by planting 500 plant seedlings. In the years from 2002 to 2016, the net forest coverage was 557 hectares. Carbon absorption of the La Mesa watershed increased from 2.2% of Metro Manila's total carbon emission to 3%. And the La Mesa watershed's land area was about 2,700 hectares by the year 2016. In 2016, an attempt at a housing project to be built in 58 hectares of the 2,700 hectares of forest was cancelled. The late Environmental Secretary Gina Lopez has cancelled the ECC, or the Environmental Clearance Certificate, citing reasons that do not fulfill the necessary requirements for the construction to begin. The need for regulation and policy is required in many areas deemed in need for protection and conservation, as they help for the growth and development of a society. The watershed provides many benefits for the residents in Metro Manila, from clean water supply and flood management to the carbon absorption in the atmosphere, which helps in climate change.
The story of the degradation, restoration, and preservation of the La Mesa Watershed Preservation is a rare case of cooperation between the government, the corporation, and the people, who help not just by lending a hand in reforestation projects, but also by visiting the park and spreading and raising awareness of the great green landscape, which is the last ecological frontier of the National Capital Region.